Hey, welcome back everyone. I'm going to remove this alternator, the steering rod linkage from the wheel attaches. It's just below the alternator. I can actually see it down in there, but with this out of the way it might give me a little more working room, and it doesn't seem to be too difficult to take the alternator off. I'm looking at, it looks like 2 bolts, a couple electrical connections. So there's one electrical connection. Make sure you disconnect the battery. I have disconnected my battery before I do this. And time to go get a wrench. This is 13 millimeter here. Come on, there you go. I may not have to get that bolt back there. I'll just try these 2 here and see what happens. There might be enough room to pull it out, up. I don't know. I'll find out. I should get my wrench out of there. And there's one. Bottom. There, they're almost identical. Top one's a little longer. And there's the alternator. Okay, this is my fluid draining contraption. You may have seen it in another video. I'm going to try and get what I can get out of the power steering pump here, the fluid out of it, because I'm almost positive when I take the lines loose from the rack, they're going to leak fluid, and whatever I have in here is probably going to go with it. So the less I have in here will be the less mess I have. Well, that's about all I can get. That helps, or will help. Okay, right down in there is a bolt. You can probably see that. That is connecting the steering shaft to the steering rack. If you're replacing your damper pulley, if you have an automatic, you need to take the starter out and lock the flywheel. And that's what this tool is for here. So this is a specialty tool. What it does, screws up where the starter goes, and then these teeth here catch the flywheel. So now let's get the starter out. This is supposed to work. I will find out. Now the shop manual says in order to take the starter out, you need to take this intermediate pipe out that goes back to the exhaust. And there's 3 bolts here, and then on the other side there's, 3 nuts and 3 nuts, and they're on at 15 foot-pounds of torque, and they're a 15 millimeter, I believe. And I'm hoping that I can just loosen these on both sides and then go back here and get these hanger studs. Okay, this is the starter side. I'm using a regular socket wrench on this. I didn't want to beat on the handle of my electric wrench. What I intended to do is to get a 1/4 inch extension and an adapter so I could use my regular 3/8 drive, and just that way I have enough clearance between the exhaust pipe and everything. But I had it loose enough that I'm able to put 2 hands on it and just use a 1/4 inch ratchet wrench, take it loose. And that's the third one. And that flange is loose. These front hanger bolts are also 15 millimeter, and they're on it. I think it's 36 foot-pounds. I'll take them loose a little bit. Okay, as I was taking these loose, you can see that there is some slop there, which is good. I just don't want to take them all the way out right now. Well, there doesn't seem to be any way around this. I have to take the drop the intermediate pipe down from the mufflers in the back, and what you're seeing right now is the connection for the catalytic converter, or exhaust sensors I'll call them, behind the catalytic converters on the pipes. And this is a connection on this side. There's one on the other side, and you can see the wire. It travels down on the inside there, shielded from the heat, to a catalytic converter on this side, and then of course on the other side. Okay, right up here is a safety tab, and then that just pulls out. It's right in there. Enables this connection for the exhaust sensor to be loosened, and it just pulls out with a little difficulty, like that. Then go back down here and move the wire. And then the clips all the way down through there. I've got a couple of them already removed. There's still one right at the back there. But what I'm going to do before I get dirt in this, because I do work in the dirt on cardboard, I'm going to put some electrical tape around this connection and try and keep the dirt out of it. And then I'm going to go back to the back and see what's going on back there. Okay, I have that exhaust sensor clip, wire clip there to drop down. And then on the other side, I have one more. Then when I get those done, the wires will have plenty of slack in them, and I will come back. I'll come back and take these 2 bolts loose here, and you can see that they're spring loaded. I hope I can just drop them here and be able to reconnect them. So once I drop those springs down, or once I take the hanger loose there, I'm going to come back here, and I will take 2 flange bolts loose on this side and 2 flange bolts loose on this side. Then it will be able to separate this exhaust, pull it back this way a little bit, and this is how you would replace a starter. This is also how you would replace this intermediate pipe, which is an H pipe, by the way. You can see it looks like an H. If you wanted to put an X pipe in there. There's a good YouTube video out on exhaust scavenging between an H pipe and an X pipe if you want to watch it. I think I'll loosen these two guys up here first. Colorful Pittsburgh sockets. 13mm socket. Wow, that thing seems to be a little tight. There is a nut on top. Okay. Okay. Just going to loosen them up a little bit. Okay. Back here's the dilemma. You might be able to see that somebody's run a bead around and they've picked up part of the, even over here, they've run a bead around and they've picked up, gotten into the bolt itself. This just keeps getting more exciting as I go. All I want to do is change the damper pulley. Okay. Dremel tool to the rescue. I was able to cut around the bolt where the bead was on the back side, and sure enough, I got her. Okay, now to loosen all the bolts. This one here, and these two over here, and then I'll see what happens. So this side is loose. You can see some of the grinding I had to do to get this bolt out. I might replace these gaskets, and then I might go ahead and use some high temperature silicone around them. I'm going to go ahead and remove these front hanger bolts. And when I remove the second one, the pipe dropped down, even with where the mufflers were. When I finished removing the last hanger bolt, this is a heavy system, it all fell down. I had some support back here, and you can see it just like kind of separated right there. It just went crazy. It's really loose now. What I want to do, this is really a two-person job, because at the back, those mufflers, if they were held up, the donut just fell out of the other side. There's a donut. Let's see. That's where they go in. Okay, metal piece goes towards the manifold. Maybe, just maybe, I've got enough room to get the starter out right now. I'll go check that. Okay, I'm going to have to take these two bolts and drop the starter down so I can get to the connections on the solenoid part of the starter. Looks like two different bolts here. I do believe the starter's been changed before, otherwise the bolts would be identical. I'm able to get a 13mm socket on this, but on the other side I'm probably going to have to go with a crow. I call it a crow's foot, but there's another name for this type of wrench. And they're on, I want to say 37 foot-pounds, somewhere like that. Well, I gotta tell you, there was no room to work on this starter. It's easy enough to take these two bolts out, but when you get over to the wires, you've got your exhaust manifold about here, and a sensor, exhaust sensor sticking up, and just very little room to work. Anyway, for references, I used a 9/16 on this one, and this one here was a 5/16. I threw it somewhere. I don't know. I'll have to go find that wrench. Anyway, then when I went to take the starter out, it did not want to come out. Turns out there's a plastic piece. Goes like this. This plastic piece, I believe, goes somewhat like that. Screws into the side of the oil pan there. Anyway, I was not able to pull the starter out. This thing was hanging up somehow, so I took this loose. And then I was able to weasel the starter out. So, wiped the dirt off of it, and it turns out it's remanufactured in China, the AC Delco. So the starter has been replaced at one point in its life. Now, what I need to check is to see if this thing will bolt up and hold the transmission, hold the flywheel like it's supposed to. And that's what I'm going to go do now. There's a shot of a nice looking flywheel, by the way. Alright, here's a pretty shaky shot of me holding the camera and the flywheel holding tool holding the flywheel. And that last shot, in case you were wondering what that was at the top, looked like a crack on the bell housing. I just put my finger in there and moved it around, and it was grease. You can still see some trail of the grease down towards the bottom of the shot there. But that's all that was. I thought it might be a crack too, but it wasn't. It isn't. So this is Cars, Trucks, and Detours, aka Steve AZ. It's getting to be about 82 degrees out here, 8:30 in the morning, and got to call it a day. This is the end of part 1 on how I changed my damper pulley. So thank you all for subscribing and watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.